Welcome back to another vid. This is an Xbox 360 pickups vid. The first time for many a year, I think, that I've just done a video entirely for the 360. It feels like many years. You probably find out it was just a few months ago. But it feels like it was a good 4 or 5 years ago, if not more, where all I had in the vid was 360 related stuff. So yeah, really got back into the system of late. Bought 5 games, well in fact bought a few more actually, but those will be on the way within the next couple of weeks, along with a few other games on different systems. So again, once all that has arrived, I'll do a separate vid for that. Some pretty good stuff, or at least ones that I've wanted. There's one game in the next pickups vid which I've wanted since 1992, ridiculous, and now I've finally got it. Well, it's not yet arrived, but I've bought it and it's on the way, so more of that in the future. But yeah, 5 games I've bought, and a new system behind me. It's the white glossy special edition Xbox 360. So this is in mint condition. There's a bit of a story behind this, which I'll tell you in a second. A slight ding there on the corner, which was probably caused during transit. But apart from that, it is quite literally in mint condition. The previous owner had said that it was barely used, and they weren't lying. It's still sealed at the top, but they had gone into it at the bottom there, obviously to get into the console. But yeah, really pleased to get this. So it basically came about, obviously I've been playing the 360 beforehand. I've got the standard black edition, but I wanted to buy this one back. Before I tell that story, yeah, I wanted to buy it back because this white version, because I had it years ago. I think I got rid of it just when the Xbox One and the PS4 came out. So it was a case of out with the old, in with the new, and I guess I thought I wouldn't really miss that previous generation of games, but in more recent times I've gone back to it. So I've had the standard black edition console, which is good, it serves its purpose, it's somewhat nostalgic I suppose, but I wanted this one, it looks really cool, and it's been a good few years since I had it. So anyway, so this particular version, there was another one actually on eBay, which I nearly bought, and it was $180, buy it now or best offer, way overpriced. But the postage was nearly $80, and it was just excessive. And I sent the lady a question, on eBay, and I just said, look, if you send this via USPS, which is the United States Postal Service, think of Royal Mail, basically. I said, if you send it via that method, it's probably going to be about $20, $25 maybe. If you send it via FedEx or UPS, you're probably looking at maybe $40 to $50. So I don't quite know where she was getting $80 from, but she was insistent that that's what she'd been quoted. So I did put in a couple of offers for the 360, but I took into consideration her $80 shipping, which was just obscene. So, and the offers were automatically rejected. So, yeah, she was obviously looking for around about probably 180 total, which is just too much. Anyway, so I was umming and ahhing about maybe bidding a bit more, because it was boxed and it was in decent condition. And it also came with the white Connect system as well, to be fair. But I've already got Connect. I've had it since 2009 or 2010, whenever it came out. So, I mean, I don't really use it these days, of course, but I don't want another one. Even the white one, I wouldn't use it. So, anyway, as luck would have it, as fate would have it, it was the very next day, and I looked at the newly listed items for the special edition white glossy 360, and one had been listed for $95, free postage, or best offer. So I thought, bloody hell, that's a really good price. So instead of just buying it because it was at a great price, I was a little bit greedy, and because it had the best offer. So I thought, I'll go in with an $80 offer, which is about sort of 65, 70 quid. So it was taking the biscuit a little bit. So it was rejected within about 10 minutes. But the seller did lower the price from 95 to 90. So maybe they were new to eBay and they don't really know how the counter system works. I'm not sure. But yes, they lowered it from 95 to 90. They'd rejected my $80. So I thought, rather than go back and offer 85, because someone else might nip in and get it, I just thought, I'm just going to buy it for $89.99, free shipping. And of course, this is it. It's the mint condition 360. And it arrived a few days later, which would have been now a couple of days ago. And yeah, or was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. And it's in, yeah, brilliant condition. I'm really pleased with it. $90 is actually a pretty good price. They usually go for probably $120, $130, but mint condition, you probably add a couple of dollars on that. So anyway, so I got the new console, really liking it. And yeah, it only comes with a standard 4GB hard drive memory on there, but I've just put an external hard drive in there. Sorry, an internal hard drive into the side of the 360. Easy to do, you don't have to open it up, you just take the little latch off and you push the hard drive in and it's done. Very, very easy. So yeah, got 5 games. I'm going to talk a little bit about them. Not too much, maybe 1 or 2 I'll go into a little bit of detail for. But yeah, so there's 3 first-person shooters and then there's 2 racing games. 1 all-out driving game and a little bit which is a bit more action involved, but I'll touch upon that. So yeah, the first-person shooters, now of course back in the 360 PS3 era, first-person shooters were all the rage, and I really liked them. I still play them, I do like them, but it's definitely a genre which I'm not as into as I used to. I'd say in that sort of, at the tail end of the PS2 Xbox era, so say 2004, 2005, up until about 2011, that was probably my heyday of first-person shooters. And I've continued to play them since, but like I say, I've definitely not been as into them as I used to. But if you're going back to the 360 and the PS3, as I have been recently, then there's so many first-person shooter games on there that you can't help really but play them. And it's been quite nice going back to them in a way. Older graphics, of course, but they still look good. Nowhere near as good as PS4 and Xbox One, and therefore, obviously, they're going to be nowhere near as good as PS5 and Xbox Series X. Or is it Xbox One Series X? Again, they're messing around with the titles, man. That could be a mistake. It's like Nintendo Wii and Wii U all over again, maybe, with that. So, anyway, so the first game... Oh, and the 3 first-person shooters, 2 of them I've completed, so I may talk a little bit more about them in an upcoming brew, if I remember. And one of them I've just started. I'm maybe 2 or 3 missions in. And so we'll start with the first-person shooter, which is not very good. And then the next one's, all right. And then the one after that is really good. You've got to get it. So this one is bang average. Now, I think this is it says only on 360, Xbox 360, so it must be an exclusive. If you don't recognise the front cover, if you're in PAL regions, then that's because in the PAL region it got a different cover for whatever reason. I think it's more like white and sort of light blue, whereas this is kind of a darker, murkier, green, beige, yellowy kind of tint to it. Anyway, that game is called Hour of Victory. Apologies for any glare. Very sunny day, of course, over here. Yes, Hour of Victory, different front cover, like I say, that we've got in America to PAL regions. Boxed and complete, as you'd expect, old school. So, yeah, now this isn't a particularly good game, I'll say that straight from the off. The funny thing about this game is I'd never even heard of it, and which is quite unusual because, you know, back in the 360 days, I was really into the system, and the PS3 as well, and most games that came out, especially if it was a World War II shooter, I'd have been all over it, but this one, it must have escaped me for whatever reason. But I stumbled upon it by chance the other day. There was a YouTuber, I don't know who it is, I'm not subscribed. I just literally, I think I typed in something like hidden gems, you know, something silly like that. Now, this is not a hidden gem. It isn't at all. So don't go out and buy this, especially if it's expensive. And I don't think it is. But don't, if you do buy it because you're curious, just expect the worst, and then you can only be pleased, I suppose. If you expect a lot from this, you will be disappointed. So anyway, this particular YouTuber, they were saying that, an American YouTuber, and they were saying that it's pretty good, but most people don't like it. So they liked it, they've got a bit of a soft spot for it, but don't expect too much. But they were saying it is pretty good and maybe give it a try. So like I say, I'm 2 or 3 missions in, and what I will say, and you can trust me, is give it a try by all means if it's dirt cheap. But you'll very quickly find that it's when did it come out? 2007. So when did the 360 come out? Late 2005, 2006? So it's a relatively early, last gen, which is very nearly 2 generations ago game. So don't expect the earth. It looks a slight improvement from PS2 Xbox era and kind of controls in that sort of very early 360, slightly stiff first-person shooter way. There's promise there. There's some really interesting features, to be fair, but it's not very well executed because I guess they were just getting to grips with that technology. So it's very basic, it's very bare bones. It's an early 360 game, but if you've got a bit of a penchant for that, a bit of a soft spot for it, maybe give it a go. Just don't expect too much. What I will say, it makes me throw it to the ground. Probably deserves that, to be fair. What I'll say is that there's a couple of nice features on there. There's 3 characters, and I'll tell you their names. Sergeant Calvin Blackbull, who's a sniper, Sergeant William Ross, who's a commando, stereotypical kind of British, stiff upper lip, even though he's Scottish, but, you know, like strength, a lot of kind of, you know, he doesn't flinch, takes a lot more damage, and resilient and all that kind of stuff. And then you've got Lieutenant Ambrose Taggart. I think the former and the latter are both American, and he's kind of like a covert op, so special forces, stealth, basically. And so, like, with a, what you call it, suppressed weapon and all that kind of thing. So it's nice that you're given the choice of character who you want to use when you're going into the missions. I quite like that. And also, every single character has their own sort of strength. So there's one of them, I can't remember who it is. It's probably the stealthy guy, I'm guessing, but I stand corrected on that. But there's certain parts of the map, because it's not open world, but it's a first-person shooter where it's got different corridors you can choose to go down if you're controlling a certain character. So I think it's the Ambrose Taggart guy, and there's certain alleys like you can go down, and there's like kind of like a barbed wire there. But if you're controlling that character, you can choose to go through the barbed wire or to remove it to take it down. If you're one of the other characters, you can't do that. So that kind of avenue is blocked off. So it allows you, if you're controlling this character, to choose to go down there and essentially sneak around the back and surprise the enemy. So it's like alternate routes, which you can only go down if you're controlling a certain character. So it's quite nice how they've done that. It's something a little bit different. Does it work? Kind of, in a way. Like I say, I want to stress that it's very kind of last generation, so it's not too bad in a cheesy way. The control mechanism is pretty good. Well, sort of, kind of. It's slightly spoiled in the fact that you've got your B button is crouch, A button is jump, X is reload, Y is... what does Y do? Y changes your weapon. So that's pretty standard control, so they've done that quite well. RT, the right trigger, is fire. But where they've went wrong, in my opinion, is LT is throw a grenade. It's not zoom. If you want to zoom, you have to press on the analog button, the right click. You have to click it in. And it's slightly... you get used to it, but it's slightly annoying because your gut reaction, at least mine is RT to shoot and LT to zoom in. That's how most first-person shooters work. Not all of them, of course, but most of the big successful ones work. So that's kind of annoying. Maybe there's a way to change it in the controls. I didn't look, to be honest. I just kind of cracked on with the default. So, but yeah, graphically, it looks, as I say, an early 360 game. So give it a try. If you're into the early stuff, just do not expect anything exciting. It will not blow your mind. Yeah, it's just an average 360 game, but I'm just surprised that I'd never heard of it before. So, yeah, I'm 3 missions in. I'm stuck at the moment. There's this part where you've got to jump onto like kind of what they call like a garrison gun or something, and these planes are coming down, and there's also some enemies on the floor, but I think you're meant to focus on the planes, but the ones on the floor, the trucks are coming in and enemies are getting off, and yeah, it's just been a bit of a nuisance at the moment. I've only tried it 4 or 5 times, but I've not yet done it, so it frustrated me, so I knocked it off. I'll go back to it soon. Next up, now this game is... so we've gone from very, very, very average, maybe poor, with Hour of Victory, to meh with this one. It's made by Activision, so really it should be a lot better than it is, because it came out the following year after Modern Warfare, made by Activision as well. Well, Infinity Ward, but Activision were involved. And that game is called Secret Service. So think of it like, you're kind of like a James Bond character in a sense, although working for like the American government. And again, boxed and complete. These are all in really good condition. I deliberately bought the ones which were kind of mint and complete. And they're all cheap. That's another reason I've got back into the 360 in recent times. The games are so cheap. In fact, all of these, I think apart from one of them, which was about $8, the rest were under $5. Some of them, a couple of them had free postage as well, so they're really cheap to get. Not that it's about, quantity, it's about quality. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Quality and quantity, I think, with these. So, anyway, so, yeah, Secret Service. Silent Service? That was on the Amiga and ST, wasn't it? Submarine game. Yeah, Secret Service. It should be a lot better than what it is, because it came out just after Call of Duty Modern Warfare. But it kind of plays like it a little bit, but it's a little bit kind of almost... how can I describe it? The playability feels a little bit twitchy. when you're zooming in, it's not particularly good. They've not nailed it, nowhere near as good as Call of Duty. When you shoot certain enemies at certain times, it can feel satisfying, but there's something not quite right with it. It's almost like, and of course this wouldn't surprise me, that they had two different teams working on both games, even though it was under the Activision banner. Maybe it's Infinity Ward, isn't it? Maybe Infinity Ward, I'm guessing, worked on... In fact, that must be what it is, because I'm looking at the back, it says Havoc. So maybe Havoc, the team Havoc, were working on this. And caused havoc, quite frankly, because I've not quite nailed it. So yeah, it's a bang average, semi-decent first-person shooter. The one thing which kind of slightly spoils it, apart from the controls at times, is that, and I think it's on the second level onwards, you've got these puzzle elements. So you've basically got to defuse bombs, and by defusing the bomb, it's this... I'll maybe put a picture of it if I can find one. Or if not, I'll take like a photo of the game. It'll look terrible because of the quality. But either way, you've got to put these circuit boards in order, and when you put them into place, and when you're progressing and you can see yourself making progress, it's really actually quite satisfying. But it's really frustrating because it's very difficult. It starts off easy, and then it gets progressively harder. And the problem is, it's not that there's one or two of these circuit board puzzles in place. There must be about a dozen, and particularly from the second level onwards, and they've become very common throughout the course of the level, throughout the course of the game, really, and it's frustrating because they get progressively harder. There's more and more boards to connect, and more of the red circuits to avoid. So it is satisfying when you do it. It does make you think, I'll give you that, but there's just too many. If there's maybe 4 or 5, that would have been overkill, but there's probably, I mean, I lost count, but I'd say there must be about a dozen, easily a dozen, of these kind of puzzles in the game. A couple of them I don't think you have to do. They're just to get into, to open like a secret door, to recover like a cell phone, which is kind of like an intel, like a collectible, which you don't have to do. But even that was really disappointing because one of the codes was really hard to crack. It must have took me about 20 efforts to do it. And it was when I was in the White House at the time, and I thought, well, God, behind this hidden door, there's probably something really good in here, like an amazing gun, a golden gun, or something like a James Bond-esque weapon, or there must be something really cool in there. But no, there wasn't. I went into this room, and it was barren, apart from a cell phone. It's like, really? I did all that work, which I didn't have to do, to get a bloody cell phone? That was just taking the piss. But, yeah, it is quite satisfying when you do it. There's just far too many of them. So if you've played this game, or if you buy this game, and then you get to those stages, eventually, maybe not straight away, but after the 3rd or 4th, maybe even after the 2nd, you will start to get frustrated. I can pretty much guarantee you'll be like, another one, another puzzle, another bomb to defuse, really? But there's some good touches to it. It's a game which promises a lot, but doesn't quite deliver. It's even frustrating to the point where you can go into some rooms and cause a bit of destruction, like there's some statues where you can like blow the heads off them. That's quite frustrating. That's quite pleasing, I should say, really. But what's frustrating about it is then you'll go into the very next room, and then there's some glass cabinets. Now you shoot them, and it makes the sound of smashing glass, but there's no smashing glass. It's like, come on, really? Couldn't you have just put a little bit more effort into doing that? And it would have helped make the immersion that much better. So, yeah, the AI at times is pretty poor. You're not really going to struggle too much. If you die in the game a few times, it's probably because you didn't really know what you were doing, because the game doesn't really do a particularly good job at telling you where you're meant to go. So it's more the fault of the game than your fault. So, yeah, Hour of Victory, like I say, I'd only recommend to hardcore first-person shooters, or if you want to try something new. This one, I'd kind of recommend it, but again, if it's expensive, and I don't think it is, I'd avoid it. But if you're a fan of first-person shooters, you might want to give it a go. It's okay, but very much just okay. I finished it, but it does get a little bit better as the game goes on. The latter stages I thought were quite good. There's quite a lot of enemies coming on the screen, and it's quite a buzz to shoot them. There's quite a few weapons in there as well. But yeah, it's lacking something. It really is. Now, this game isn't lacking something. You have to buy this game. This is so good. A little bit of a story to it first. I played the demo of this. It could have been on the 360 or the PS3, I can't remember. when it came out. So when was this? Back in the day of demos, if they still even do them, I don't know. 2000 and... It doesn't say. Why doesn't it say? I'm going to guess. Does it say on the disc? I'm going to guess it like 2009. I think 2010. It says on the disc. It doesn't say on the back of the box that I can see. So 2010. So I played the demo back then. And maybe I talked about it, because 2010, that's around about when I started making vids. So maybe I didn't, I'm not sure. But I wanted to get the game, I really did, because I quite enjoyed the demo. I thought it plays quite well. But I never got round to buying it. I don't know why. It's one of those games where you always intend to get it. I'm sure you can think of games you've wanted to buy and you've just never, for whatever reason, still haven't maybe. And I very nearly bought it probably a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, and we were in GameStop in the mall, and they very cleverly had like a bargain bin basement right next to the queue, you know, or in line, as they say over here, in the queue, obviously, in the UK. And it was quite busy that day, so there I was in line or in queue, and I was standing right next to, conveniently, this bargain bin, which they placed strategically to entice people to buy stuff while they're in line. And I know that's how it works, obviously, well, one, because it's obvious, but two, because I used to work in an electronics boutique back in the late 90s, so we used to do things like that all the time. Anything to sell any games, we'd do, you know, put them right next to the checkout and all that kind of stuff, or the till, whatever. So, and on this particular day, 2 or 3 years ago, Binary Domain was in there. I've just told you what it is, we're a knobhead. Binary Domain is the game that I'm talking about. So Binary Domain was in the bargain bin. And then there was another game as well, I can't remember. And it was $5. And I ummed and ahed about it, and I picked it up, and I was going to buy them, because I thought, that's a really good price. And but in the end, I was in line for ages, and I just put them back, because I thought, I'm being a bit greedy. And then I regretted it, because the PS3 version goes for a little bit more than the 360. So anyway, I got this for just under $10. Probably averages around about 12 to 15, I think, thereabouts. So finally got around to playing it, stuck it on the other day, finished it within 24, 48 hours. This is brilliant. You have to play this game. Honestly, you just go on eBay and buy it if you've got a 360 or a PS3. So published by, or made by, Sega as well down there. The whole published and made by, because I'm not a hardcore gamer, I'm not into the industry, I've never really know who makes it. It's just I see these games that have these logos on there. So basically it's a first-person shooter, but it's set in the year 2018. You've got this company called Armada. And what Armada have done, there was another company I think who were doing this, I forget what they were called, in the game. And Armada have become like the monopoly, if you like. And they've gone against the Geneva Convention, because what Armada do is they make these things called Hollow Children. And Hollow Children are essentially robots, basically, but they look like humans. In fact, the technology is so good that humans can mate with these robots, and they can then have children. So, but the robots don't know that they're robots. So it's kind of an interesting premise, quite a clever one, really. And but because it goes against the Geneva Convention of, like, you know, robots intermingling with humankind, all that kind of stuff, then you've got this task force, again, predominantly American soldiers, but not exclusively, as I'll touch upon in a second. You know, the main character, Dan Marshall, is American, and with his colleague called Bo. Stereotypical as well kind of characters. But so they've got the task of basically bringing Armada down, because they don't want the robots to be running rife throughout society. Even though they're not kicking off, they're not like causing trouble, they're not taking over as such. I guess ultimately maybe eventually they would take over if they were being slowly kind of implemented into society and having children with humans and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so that's the premise of the game. It's basically you've got to take down the organisation and the robots that are in society. Even though, really, it's almost like a battle of... it's kind of like a moral thing, really, because you do think, well, if they're not doing any harm, because they're not, like, taking over humanity in the sense of, you know, making humans slaves or anything like that. But I guess from, like I say, a moral perspective, it's like, is this the right thing to do? Probably not. So, anyway... The cool thing about this, even though it's a sort of a standard first-person shooter, is it's the shooting mechanics, which are so good. you know, when you're shooting the robots, and you can, well, I'll have put some screenshots of someone on the screen already. It's so cool because you can shoot them in the legs, and the shrapnel and the armour kind of flies off everywhere. Now, it does disappear, it doesn't stay on the ground, probably because of the way the 360 memory, maybe it couldn't really store it all on the screen at the same time, I don't know. Maybe more modern technology could do that. But it's flying off all around the place, it stays on the ground for a few seconds, and the sparks are flying everywhere. If you shoot the enemies, the robots in the legs, then they'll fall down. Sometimes they'll hop around with one leg if you shoot one leg off. If you shoot their head off, then they'll attack each other. It's really cool, and you've sometimes got loads of them on screen at any one given moment. And it's just really satisfying to shoot the enemies. So I'll give it that. It's really, really good. And when you shoot them, you accrue kind of like a credit system. And on every level, or scattered throughout the level, there's shops, like these little kind of technology kiosks that open. And you can kind of beef your own soldier up, give him new perks, strength, ammo capacity, you know, reload speed and all that kind of stuff. And you can do it for your teammates. Now, another cool feature about this game is that you have at any one time 2 or 3 teammates on the screen. Sometimes it's just you, but often it's often you and 2 others. And you can choose which ones. That the screen before a level starts will say which squad members do you want to select. And as the game goes on, you kind of meet new people. And that's a nice little feature. And it can have an effect on gameplay because, like I say, when you're accruing these credits by shooting robots, and the more you shoot them, so like the more bits of their mechanical body you blow off, the better. So if you shoot for their legs, aim for their legs, you'll get more kind of credits. So when you go and build your character up, you can also spend that money on your teammates as well, so you can build them up. So that can kind of work to your advantage, because if you make your squad good, then obviously they can shoot the enemy pretty easily, whereas if you just concentrate on giving yourself all the power-ups, then your teammates are going to be relatively weak. So if you balance it out, you can really blitz through the levels pretty well. So I like how they've done that, that's pretty clever. There's a squad order system as well. I only used it a few times. You can order them to wait and to hold and to, you know, to shoot and to fire at the enemy. But really, I didn't use it too many times. Sometimes they kind of did it themselves without me asking. So, but nonetheless, it's a nice little feature to have in the game, even if it's sort of a bit basic, or it seems so anyway. So yeah, really liked the game with the squad feature. My initial reaction when I played it, because it's kind of like a third-person sort of view, is I thought the camera was a little bit too zoomed into the camera, to the player, yeah, the on-screen vision. If you were zoomed out that little bit more, I thought it would have been a bit better. Now, maybe there's a way to do that in the options menu. I think there might be, actually, but I never changed it. I just got used to it, and it just became second nature. So really liked it. Some really cool moments in there where you're kind of sliding down this like bridge, essentially, like a drop, and you're controlling. It's like being on like a bloody water ride. It was really cool. Yeah, so they've mixed it up a little bit. A few of the modes work, a few of them don't. It's like they tried, but it didn't quite work. But for the most part, I thought, yeah, I really enjoyed it. And a little twist at the end, which I kind of saw coming, to be honest. A little bit cheap. And once the game finishes, don't turn the game off, because there's an extra little bit. You don't play it. It kind of like it's like a cutscene, really. Which is kind of a nice thing to have. But again, a bit cheesy. I sort of expected it. But yeah, really good game. Graphically, it still looks really good. I mean, 2010, it's a decade old now. And I was looking at it thinking, this looks really nice. Oh, there's a few tricky parts in the game as well, where I found them quite frustrating. 1 or 2 times where I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't feel the game told me what I was meant to be doing. It was just a case of just get on with it. And I had to kind of figure it out. Or it would give you a loose kind of cryptic clue, which I found to be quite frustrating. Maybe that was just me, though. And then I'd get quite far, and then you'd die in the game, and then it would restart you from like 5 minutes like in the past, like right at the start of the boss battle, and it was like, oh, for God's sake, really? But again, perseverance, you do it eventually. You just focus, you concentrate, don't you, and eventually you do it. So you must get this game. If you're into first-person shooters, and you want something a little bit different, with an interesting premise and storyline to it, a bit cheesy, but I really like it. This has been the best game I've played for quite some time, so couldn't recommend this highly enough. Binary Domain, really good. Buy it. Get on eBay right now. You're probably doing it already. You've got a bloody window open, haven't you? An adjacent window. That's what I usually do when I'm watching you lot making vids. So 2 more games left. Yeah, I've started to play this one. I did play it briefly in the day, but really it's the 4th game in the series that I much prefer. But this is still really good, and this was a launch game for the 360, and it's Project Gotham Racing 3. Still looks really good, again, albeit in a very 360 way. But yeah, I'm having fun with it. And one of the things that I've noticed from playing this to playing more recent games, like, what did I talk about relatively recently? It would have been maybe, was it Grid that I bought on the PS4? And digital game. Yeah, I did, and I talked about it on a vid. And I'm really liking it. The graphics look great and all the rest of it. But the only real difference between 360 games and, say, PS4 games, or those generations, the only real difference is the graphics. Playability-wise, it doesn't differ that much. It's still a driving game. You go around a corner and you move left, you move right, you brake, you accelerate. It's the same kind of thing. Yes, it's a bit smoother, of course, on the more modern systems, but really the mechanics aren't that different. The mechanics on the PS2 era aren't bad, but they're not as good as the 360. But again, it comes back to that thing. For me, with the 360 and the PS3, is they kind of nailed it for playability. It took gaming to a really good level, and anything we get from here on in is just refined, which is good, but it's like, yeah, this generation is still really good. Graphically, as I say, of course it looks 360 era, but it still looks good. It plays well. What more can I say? It's a driving game. It's Project Gotham 3. 4's much better. Like I say, there's a few more tracks, a few more cars, a few more options. It looks that little bit better. Yeah, but I'm really enjoying it, and it's good. I'm just enjoying going back to that particular game. And then last but not least, this is a funny one because I think this game came out on the Xbox, maybe the PS2 as well. I'm pretty certain I had it on the Xbox because, well, I remember. I remember having it. Or at least I had one of the ones on the Xbox. But that game is Burnout Revenge. And this is so cool. It's such a good game. I did have it on the 360 as well when it came out. And it may also have been a launch game, or thereabouts. Yeah, 2006, so maybe if it wasn't launch, it was a very early game. So this is such a good game, mint condition as well. And I don't think I did the whole box and complete for the others, did I? So I will at the end of the vid, when I do a little bit of a montage. I bet you can't wait for that. But yes, I really like this game. But the one thing about it, you've got these kind of crash features. It's good in a way where all you basically do is you accelerate from the start, you crash into a vehicle, and then you wait for all the oncoming traffic to crash. That's it. I think it's called crash mode. And the idea is to get as much money as possible by causing as much damage as possible, and then you get your gold medal or whatever, and you move on to the next one. And then there's the standard races, of course, where you finish first, and time attacks. But for me, what Burnout is all about is the road rage events. Road rage events, and it's so cool, so addictive, just to bash them off the road and knock them into oncoming traffic or into other cars, or knock them into the side of the wall, and then that kind of split-second kind of graphic comes up and says, like, crash or takedown or whatever it says. And just knocking them off the road, it's really satisfying. If the entire game was just one entire road rage event, or full of road rage events, I'd love that, because that's what I prefer playing. So yeah, just really satisfying, bashing them off the track and causing as much damage as possible. Quite a tricky game, because it's really fast. It really is. So you've got to have your wits about you as you're kind of manoeuvring through and around traffic. And quite a challenging game, but like anything else, perseverance, isn't it? You stick with it, you'll get better. So really enjoying that. And like I say, I think it was on the Xbox that I had it, and I played it quite a lot. To the point where I was surprised when I put the 360 version on, because I was expecting to see loads of achievements, because it's like, I've played this game before. But as I keep saying, I think what it was is I played the Xbox, the original Xbox, and he said the Xbox One. It kind of was the Xbox One, wasn't the Xbox original. I think because I played the original version on the Xbox a lot, it made me think it was the 360 version. But judging by my lack of achievements on here, only 4 or 5 that I got a few years ago, then that must be the reason why. So yeah, there we are. 5 games for the Xbox 360. Really enjoying them. Hour of Victory is maybe the exception, but I'm only 3 missions in, I think. So I will persevere with it, but yeah, really pleased to get them all. Binary domain, remember, you've got to get it. And of course the new console as well, special edition white 360. It's not the matte, I don't know if I said this at the start, but it's not the matte edition, like a matte white finish. That was the launch one. This is a glossy finish, and it looks really, really cool. So anyway, until my next vid, it's probably going to be maybe on Friday, this Friday or next Friday, which will be a vlog, and then I'll have a music vid. Plans as ever, but you know me, I'll say this and then months go by and I've not done anything. But until my next vid, thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.